Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. After the recent resurgence in terrorism in various parts of the country, especially when we talk about Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, the National Security Committee some days ago that was convened on 31st of December and 1st of January, that was chaired by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, reaffirmed its resolve to eliminate the menace of terrorism and sent an unequivocal message to the terrorists that they are the enemies of Pakistan, and the national security of Pakistan remains to be incompromisable, and the writ of the state would be established at all costs. Interior Minister Rana Sanaullah had urged the Afghan Taliban to not allow the banned Taliban Pakistan to operate from the Afghan soil. And he also categorically said there won't be any dialogue with banned Taliban Pakistan until they surrender. After August of 2022, there was a resurgence in violent terrorist activities in various parts of the country, and many of those were claimed by banned Taliban Pakistan. Now, at the same time, Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari had categorically said that banned Taliban Pakistan remains to be an absolute red line for Pakistan. And he also slammed the Pakistan Tehrik-e-Insaf government for resettling the banned Taliban Pakistan militants during its tenure. And he also said that policy of appeasement of the terrorists would be quitted by the government, and a strong action would be taken against the terrorist elements. On the other hand, we have seen that there had been a repeated acceptance by Pakistan Tehrik-e-Insaf chairman Imran Khan that during his government there was a stride of settling around 5,000 TTP militants in tribal areas. And surprisingly, in his latest statement, he has said that KP police is not to be expected to confront the terrorists because terrorists are highly equipped. We'll be talking about when the nation requires a consensus and a strong resolve collectively. Such statements by Pakistan Tehrik-e-Insaf Chief Imran Khan coming, what do they actually depict, and what sort of an approach the government in Pakistan should follow when it comes to dealing separately with the banned Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan as well as the Afghan government, and to make them realize that they had promised that the Afghan soil won't be used against any other country. And we'll be talking about these aspects, and we're honored to have been joined in the studio by Brigadier Retired Mohammad Zeeshan. He is Director General, Center for Peace, Security and Developmental Studies. Brigadier Zeeshan, thank you very much for your time, for being on Views on News. Really appreciate that. And we are also honored to have been joined in the studio by Dr. Naazir Mahmood. He is Senior Journalist. Dr. Naazir, thank you very much for your time, also for being on Views on News. Really appreciate that. Let me begin the discussion with you, Dr. Mahmood. Now, these sort of statements, now Pakistan Tehrik-e-Insaf Chief Imran Khan says that the KP police is it shouldn't be expected from the KP police to confront terrorists, as the terrorists are highly equipped. What does this particular statement by the leader of such a huge political party depict?
This is highly disappointing, and you rightly pointed out at the time when the country needs to be united, country needs to boost the morale of its security forces, including the police. Such a statement from Tehrik-e-Insaf Chairman Imran Khan is tantamount to demoralizing the police force, and it is highly detrimental for Pakistan itself, Pakistan's security itself. Now the question is, why a leader such as Imran Khan, who is former Prime Minister of Pakistan, why would he deliver such a statement? Now, I think if you look at his policy in the past 20 years, one would expect this from him, because this appeasement to Taliban is not new from his side. Even when Pakistan was fighting under General Musharraf, well, one could disagree with him or agree or disagree, that is a different question. But from 2002, when the war on terror started, Pakistan has been sacrificing a lot, both economically and in terms of security personnel, and we have also sacrificed civilian lives also. So now after sacrificing that much, this coming from Imran Khan is not new. Even at that time when the NATO operations were going on, if you remember around 2008 or 9, he was the one who tried to create problems for the then government. He created problems for the PPP government. Then he tried to create problems for the PMLN government from 2013 to 2018. He tried to block the way because at that time war on terror was going on, and that was very vital to keep supplying that. And he staged for weeks, he staged protest in Peshawar, so blocking the way. So from that, and then there was a time when he was also called, and he himself recognizes that, you know, people call me Taliban Khan. Now why people call him Taliban Khan? As per his own statement, because he always had a soft corner for the Taliban, and keeping that soft corner for Taliban means keeping a soft corner for terrorism, and that is an insult and humiliation to the nation of Pakistan, which has been fighting that war on terror for 20 years, sacrificing that much, and now suddenly this person comes up and says that he wanted to settle Taliban terrorists. What is Taliban? TTP is a terrorist group. It's a bunch of terrorists. Now they have attacked army, public school, our children. They did not spare our children. They did not spare our women. And now Imran Khan is talking about settling these terrorists and militants on our territory. Now this is like admitting that he was he was an accomplice in this.
Right, Brigadier Zeeshan, your take regarding these statements coming from Pakistan Tehrik-e-Insaf Chief Imran Khan regarding settling of the TTP militants in the tribal areas, and also saying that it is wrong to expect from the KP police in particular to confront terrorists when they are highly equipped.
First of all, thank you for inviting me for the topic today. I would not divulge much on the history, as Dr. Saab has already highlighted what has happened before. Particularly at this point in time, the statement of PTI chairman Imran Khan, in my opinion, it is politically motivated, because the political struggle which is happening in Pakistan, the government of KP belongs to PTI. Right. And it will be, as he fears that there will be actions, he wants to create a history where he stated that KP police is not fully capable of handling terrorists on their own. So it may be politically motivated to, you know, have a blame game subsequently to be played between center and the province. So this is one point. As you highlighted the KP police is pretty well equipped, and KP has a very strong frontier constabulary also. KP police has done, you know, they have been able to overcome multiple terrorist attempts or attacks on their own also. KP police is actually responsible for the settled areas, and they are not expected to fight any kind of militants in the mountainous regions. They are not certainly equipped for that. But in the settled areas, they are pretty effective, and I think that this statement is uncalled for, and KP police should be able to handle it in the settled areas of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa.
Right. Let's suppose if he's saying that the KP police is not well equipped to confront the terrorists who are highly equipped. Now, since there is the government of Pakistan Tehrik-e-Insaf in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, especially when we talk about since 2013 up till now, it's been almost 10 years. So whose responsibility was it to equip and modernize and lace that police force with the modern technology and innovation?
Very, very important point, especially after the 18th Amendment. A lot of resources have been transferred to provinces. So the KP government or any other provincial government cannot blame the federation or the federal government for lack of resources. There have been plenty of resources because their share has been increased. Provincial share has been increased after the redistribution of NFC award. KP government has had plenty of resources. So in the past 10 years, had they wanted, they could have equipped, even if there is some shortfall, though as Brigadier Saab said, and I agree with him, that KP police is well equipped, but even if there is some shortfall, who's responsible for this? Essentially, if for 10 years PTI has been ruling in KP, it is exactly 10 years from 2013. So in 10 years, they could have done so much. So ultimately, it comes back to them that this was probably their own negligence, or probably their own incompetence, or probably they did not want to do it, because if they had resources to spend on the so-called billion tree tsunami or whatever, so many the tall promises and tall claims that they used to make, and they were also questionable. So nobody is asking question about that, where that money went. So if Imran Khan right now says that KP police is lacking in equipment and training, essentially this is the 10 years is a long time. In the federal government, if you come after 1 or 2 years, you can say that the previous government was responsible. But now KP government cannot even say that the previous government was responsible. They have been there for 10 years. So, and then another important point to keep in mind that the soft corner for Taliban, the Taliban attacked Muslim League Noon people, People's Party people. We lost Benazir Bhutto Shaheed. They attacked ANP, but because of that soft corner, PTI, and he recognizes that. Imran Khan says that had I been talking against Taliban, they would have attacked me. So that means just to save your own skin, you follow the appeasement policy.
So Brigadier Zeeshan, since there is a government of Pakistan Tehrik-e-Insaf in KP since 2013, whose responsibility was it to enhance the capacity or build the capacity of the KP police? Of course, as Mr. Mahmood has said, that it comes under the ambit of the provincial government, especially after the NFC awards.
Of course, there is no doubt it is the provincial government which has to invest into the capacity and capability building of the provincial police. And they may have done that. But I would like to clarify here, we should not get too much into politics. It's a very technical subject what we are talking about. In KP especially, it's also in Balochistan. When you are talking about fighting against militants and terrorists, it has to be a very combined, comprehensive approach of the police, the other law enforcing agencies, and the army and the civil armed forces. So within that context, within KP, there is a mechanism where this coordination is done at the highest level. At the provincial level, it is done, and then subsequently in the federal government, and as we have seen what resolve has been expressed in the National Security Committee meeting. Now, you cannot say that KP police will wholly solely responsible for taking on
when it comes
TTP.
to dealing with terrorism in the settled areas, of course, there is a separate department within the police force, the counter-terrorism department, of course, that relates directly to it.
That is what I said earlier also, that KP police is pretty well equipped. They are experienced, they have good leadership with them, well experienced leadership, and they will be able to handle this terrorism issue in the settled areas. When we are talking about out of settled areas where newly merged districts which were previously FATA, these are hilly or mountainous areas, certainly you don't expect KP police to be effective over there. Their civil armed forces and the army will be more appropriate over there.
Right. Dr. Naazir, we earlier saw Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif offering help in this regard in equipping and modernizing the CTD of KP province as well as Balochistan. Don't you think it should have been taken seriously by the government in KP?
They should have taken it seriously, and again, you can't walk away without talking about politics. Again, it is politics, because why did not they take it seriously? Because they have been following, politically speaking, not militarily speaking. Politically speaking, they have been following, the PTI. They have been following a confrontational policy towards the federal government ever since Imran Khan lost the vote of no confidence. So he has been unable to accept that, and that's why the PTI government in KP also has been following a confrontational politics. As mentioned earlier, terrorism is a too serious business to indulge in political point scoring. But unfortunately, the PTI has been doing it. And our Interior Minister Rana Sanaullah, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, and Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, all have been pointing out to this. They have been inviting them to talks. They have been, sending signals of reconciliation. But the PTI government in KP is not ready to talk, not ready to listen, not ready to devise a joint collective strategy to fight against terrorism. And that is, as I said, that is detrimental for the country. And this is the time that federal government and the provincial government, they should forget about their political differences and they should come together.
Right. Brigadier Zeeshan, when the federal government, Prime Minister himself offers such a help to enhance the capacity of counter-terrorism department in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, don't you think, keeping all the political differences aside, the government in KP should have taken it seriously?
They should, and I hope that they are taking it seriously apart from these statements coming from their chairman. I would like to clarify one aspect here. We have to understand what kind of threat we will be dealing with in terms of TTP. TTP is not an ideological militant outfit. TTP is a militarized outfit. Militarized means that they need a geographic area, a geography where they want to become the authority. They want their system to be installed and their judiciary and their administration is effective over there. Now, when you are confronting such kind of militarized, militant or terrorist outfit, it is not about police or CTD or army or it is about civil armed forces. It is about whole of nation approach. And as you have highlighted, it is not the time that federal government and provincial government should play politics. If you remember, as has been highlighted by Dr. Saab, after APS attack, what happened? They all sat together and they said nothing doing, no politics. So my worry is that this politics, will it end only after such a disaster, God forbid? And if we will wait for such a disaster to happen to get together, apart from their political differences, then certainly we are not maturing politically.
So exactly after 2014, the horrific attack at APS in Peshawar, in which over 140 innocent souls lost their lives, the National Action Plan was chalked out and NECTA was formed. What do you think, what needs to be done in that regard, in the implementation of that National Action Plan? It was, of course, revised back in 2021 as well.
This is a very important point, and thanks for reminding that. After 2014, there was a consensus, as Brigadier Saab pointed out, and we saw the results, solid results. And essentially, these were our security forces who chalked out a plan, implemented that, and were very successful. I will not say that 100% successful. Had they been 100% successful, there would be no terrorism now. But more or less, I think they were very successful in eradicating most of the terrorists from our soil. And that policy continued from 2014 to 2018. At least for 4 years, we saw solid results. But again, 2018 onwards, when the policy of appeasement started, the whole gains, whatever our security forces were gaining, gradually we lost that. And the result that we are facing right now, that is basically the result of those 4 years we have been suffering. And now those Taliban, TTP and other militant groups have become so emboldened, especially after the Afghan Taliban takeover in Kabul. They have been, and I have been saying this, that when Afghan Taliban take over in Kabul, that will not be a very good news for Pakistan. As initially we were led to believe that in Kabul, if the Afghan Taliban take over, there will be peace in the region. And I was, right from then, I was very apprehensive about the whole narrative that was being developed. So right now we see that
Pakistan Tehrik-e-Insaf Chief Imran Khan says that after the Afghan Taliban took over Kabul, it was a golden opportunity for Pakistan to deal with the TTP problems. And in that regard, as the Afghan Taliban urged. We went into negotiations with the Taliban Taliban Pakistan and tried to settle them down somewhere in the tribal areas, now around 5,000 of them. Now, when we talk about this particular initiative by the then government led by Pakistan Tehrik-e-Insaf, now the Nectar report says clearly when you went into negotiations that actually emboldened them. Now, Pakistan Tehrik-e-Insaf Chief Imran Khan says that it was a golden opportunity to deal with the TTP problem. On the other hand, we saw very adverse results of that particular initiative. Now, he goes on to blame the incumbent government of not providing those funds which were required to resettle those TTP militants over there. Do you think it was the responsibility of other federating units after NFC award, especially, to provide funds for settling of those TTP militants in tribal areas?
I don't think that it was a good idea from the beginning. The policy that Imran Khan was advocating now, he was not advocating Taliban case only in Pakistan. He was advocating Taliban case the world over. Wherever he went, he advocated Taliban case. So, and from that time, I was saying that this is the wrong policy, because you antagonize even those countries like Saudi Arabia and UAE, which previously were two of the three countries which recognized Taliban. Even they did not recognize Taliban, and they are also against the Taliban approach, because Taliban, as Brigadier Sahab pointed out, that they are a militarized organization. They want to establish their own concocted sense of religion and concocted sense of government that they want to impose on people. So this is not accepted. They don't accept Pakistan's constitution also. So inviting these people to settle in Pakistan and then blaming the government for not providing funds, this policy from the beginning was wrong. And it is, I don't think that this is justified to blame the present government for not providing funds. It was wrong from the beginning.
Brigadier Zeeshan, now was it in actual a golden opportunity for Pakistan to deal with that TTP problem after the Afghan Taliban took over Kabul?
I would not say golden opportunity. Opportunity was certainly there. But before talking about the opportunity, I would like to, just refer to the context at that time. Rightly or wrongly, whatever happened on 15th August 2021, when the Afghan Taliban, I would stress on that Afghan Taliban and Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan are two different entities. Afghan Taliban took over control of Kabul. Beyond that, there were certain arrangements which were to be done by Afghan Taliban, by United States and various other, coalition partners of ISAF, which were operating previously in Afghanistan. Now, all those conditions from both sides were to be met to create an environment where Afghanistan will go towards a position where it is acceptable to international community. Pakistan very wisely at that time did not readily accept the Afghan Taliban government. Although that we are dealing with them, they are a reality, but still Pakistan don't recognize them officially. Now coming to the opportunity, TTP, Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, they have changed their, their allegiances many a times from 2001 to 2021. They were initially, when the Mullah Umar was the Amir in Afghanistan, they said that he's a spiritual leader. But then they had links with Al-Qaeda also, the other religious extremist organizations in Afghanistan. And gradually now, in 20 years, we now see their chief, Noor Wali Mahsood, saying that we are not regional, we have no global agenda, we are basically for Pakistan. Considering these facts, TTP fighters and their families had to come back to Pakistan, and everybody understood at that time that TTP issue has to be settled subsequently. So Afghan Taliban facilitated the talks between the Pakistan government.
They actually urged the government of that time to have negotiation with them.
Yes, because there were certain, options. One option was that you would ask Afghan Taliban to just, finish off TTP in Afghanistan. The second option was to, have a negotiated settlement. Now, that second option was
Now,
undertaken.
when we talk about that very promise the Afghan Taliban made with the international community that Afghan soil won't be allowed to be a safe haven for the militant groups such as TTP, more importantly for Pakistan as well. Now, when it comes to fulfilling that promise, so was it a good idea on the part of the Afghan Taliban to suggest negotiation with that militant group who had been responsible for so much horrific attacks over here in Pakistan? Or rather, they should have taken a concrete action on the ground to eliminate all those safe havens rather than asking the Pakistani authorities to enter into negotiations with them. And that is what exactly we are seeing right now. After those negotiations, with Nectar says that emboldened the Taliban Pakistan to carry out more regroup and carry out more terrorist activities on Pakistani soil.
It was and it is a very complex situation. Now, let's go back to the relationship between Afghan Taliban and Taliban Pakistan. When Afghan Taliban, while they were fighting the occupation forces from their point of view in Afghanistan, where were their bases, or who were facilitating their regrouping, etc.? It was being facilitated by TTP in FATA of Pakistan. We all know that. Now, today or a year back, how can you expect Afghan Taliban to turn on those people who had housed them at some point in time, who had helped their wounded at some point in time?
When we talk about this particular favor that you're alluding to, there are so many other favors Pakistani authorities over the years have been doing for the Afghanistan, for advocating a peaceful and a stable Afghanistan, had been desirous of peace over there, then facilitated the Afghan peace and reconciliation process. Afghan Taliban struck a deal with the United States under which the international troops withdrew. There were so many things done on the part of Pakistani authorities. Now, only for that single favor, they overrule all those favors which were made by Pakistani authorities over the years and decades for stability and peace in Afghanistan. And only for that favor, they are just trying to toe that very agenda of Taliban Pakistan. And not only this, their spokesperson has categorically denied that the impression that the TTP has safe havens over there on the Afghan soil is incorrect. And they have also criticized now very strong statements which came from Pakistani authorities, the incumbent government also. So similarly, we see similar sort of a language is also being spoken in the recent statements by Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Chief Imran Khan himself.
I agree with your point of view and what you have explained. I fully agree with that. But what I'm trying to say is the realistic situation, the realistic environment in Afghanistan and in Pakistan. TTP is a problem for Afghan Taliban. They want to get rid of them. TTP is a problem for Pakistan. We knew very well when Afghan settlement would have happened, whether it was Afghan Taliban taking over Kabul or a coalition of Northern Alliance and Afghan Taliban taking over Kabul, TTP problem had to be handled subsequently by Pakistan. So I don't think so for security establishment it is a surprise that TTP is coming back. They knew very well that this problem is not settled yet. Now coming back to what Afghan Taliban should be doing, I agree with you, but try and understand that Afghanistan is a loosely governed system. It is a tribal system where Kabul is not that strong as you expect, as Islamabad is in Pakistan. Kabul cannot enforce every statement on their ministers because the ministers belong to various groups.
They can enforce ban on women education, their employment in international NGOs. There's so many other things that they can enforce with full force and authority. But when it comes to this particular promise, as per the Doha peace deal, they have excuses to make. Dr. Naazir, your take regarding that?
Yes, again, I tend to agree with Brigadier Saab that it is a fact that the Afghan Taliban were facilitated by the TTP before they captured Kabul, and they of course operated from Pakistan side of FATA and all. Everybody knows that. So the point is, from then onwards, this was naive to believe that once they capture Kabul, they will finish off the TTP. They wouldn't do it. And again, I think that it is a bit naive to think that Afghan Taliban and the TTP are two entirely different entities. They are different, but they are just two sides of the same coin, because their strategy is the same, their main principles are the same, their ideology is the same, their ultimate target is the same. And the target is to establish a theocratic government. That's why they have imposed ban on theocratic also of their own sense of religion that they try to interpret, rightly or wrongly. So, and this was a declared policy, and that is their declared policy even now. So once this policy is declared, that they don't accept modern constitution, they don't accept modern democracy, they want to have a theocratic government, and then if somebody believes that they would fulfill their promises and they would finish off with Taliban, this was a bit naive.
But they are the reality. Now, in this scenario, how the Pakistani authorities can engage with them and repeatedly keep pushing them that it was their responsibility to ensure that the TTP in particular didn't have the safe havens over there on the Afghan soil to operate from.
Very important point, and here there are two aspects. One, they are reality. I mean, I don't see anybody pushing Afghan Taliban out of Kabul, at least for next, let's say, maybe 20, 25 years. So they are the reality and they are there. Though they are not representative government, they are a bunch of militants who have captured Kabul. I don't recognize them as representative. Nobody recognized in the world. Even Saudi Arabia, as I said, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Pakistan, China, though China is negotiating some deals with them, but officially they have not been recognized by anyone. So what should Pakistan's policy be? Minimum engagement. You can't shut them off, because you have to engage with them, because they need Afghan people. Ultimately, these are Afghan people who have been suffering. Afghan people have been suffering for the past 20 years, for the past 40 years, from 1980 onwards. And Pakistani people have been suffering from that. So we can't just shut our borders and not talk to them or declare that we have nothing to do with them. They are our neighbors, and people of Afghanistan need humanitarian aid. Whatever we can do for them in terms of humanitarian and mind you, humanitarian aid is the minimum that is required for the survival of the people.
I mean, for how long Pakistan has to deal with its own problems, right? There are so many difficulties. And for how long Pakistan would keep on taking the responsibility for dealing with the humanitarian and the economic crisis in Afghanistan, given the circumstances Pakistan has to face of itself? Already it has facilitated a lot, so they have to become sustainable. And the government, whichever is in place over there in Afghanistan, has to devise certain mechanism in order to make Afghanistan a self-sufficient country, rather less dependent on Pakistan. Pakistan has also hosted millions of Afghan refugees, and that also burdened Pakistan's economic resources. So for how long Pakistan will continue to do that?
Well, Pakistan is not in a position to financially help Afghanistan. Pakistan is seeking help from other countries. So this is the truth. But having said that, when I talk about humanitarian aid comes from international agencies, from UN, from other agencies, and Pakistan is a conduit for that. Afghanistan is a landlocked country, so you need to provide some way so that aid could go there. And then Afghan people also, medical facilities are not there still. So there are some patients who come to Pakistan. So Pakistan cannot just simply close the border and not allow any Afghan to come to Pakistan. Thousands of Afghans depend on their entry into Pakistan and going back. So that minimum engagement we cannot shut. That minimum engagement for the sake of, not for the sake of Afghan Taliban, for the sake of Afghan people who have been suffering and who are suffering even more after the Taliban takeover in Kabul. So when I talk about minimum engagement, that minimum engagement should be there for the sake of Afghan people, nothing more than that. Pakistan is in no position to advocate Afghan Taliban's case internationally. We should not be doing that. We should have a red line, as our foreign minister and prime minister said, we have a red line. We cannot compromise on our security. We cannot compromise on the lives of our people. We cannot compromise in tolerating the terrorist activity that has been going on. So all these have to be taken seriously, and Afghan Taliban have to be told clearly that this is not acceptable. They have been pretending that they want to.
When the Pakistani authorities categorically convey to them that this is not acceptable, they brand these statements, their spokesperson brands these statements as being provocative and baseless.
That is the defiance. That is the arrogance. I mean, we have been helping them, and they have the guts to say, to tell this to us, and we still expect them to be, the good Taliban.
Brigadier Zeeshan,
well, I would add one thing. I would just add one thing, that in order to deal with Afghans, we have to give them a united front. We cannot talk to them with 3 or 4 different voices and different opinions, like PTI chairman saying something else, being leading the government in KP, Minister of Interior saying something else, Prime Minister is saying something else. We have to come up with a very clear united front for the Afghan Taliban or whoever is governing Kabul. This is first and foremost. And as Dr. Saab has highlighted, we cannot shut, being the transit route for the trade into Afghanistan and out of Afghanistan. But we need to put certain restrictions and strict regulations, checks on Afghans doing business through or inside Pakistan. We should take example from what Iran has done, what Central Asia have done with Afghanistan. So we are, we are disjointed in our opinion about what is to be done with Kabul, and secondly,
so what approach should be adopted if, of course, there is a need for a united political consensus among all the major political stakeholders and all the other non-political stakeholders in Pakistan to deal with this particular thing. But in the current political scenario, when there is clearly a politics of confrontation from a certain political party going on continuously, what means do you suggest are at the hands of the incumbent authorities to at least bring them all on the negotiating table and to talk about this threat of common concern?
The President of Pakistan has been active in negotiating politics between PTI and government. Similarly, this issue can also be negotiated through the good office of the President of Pakistan. This is one approach we may adopt. Secondly, it's not only about the government and the opposition. It is about the civil society. It is about the media. They have to create a consensus that government or opposition, you have to sit together and find a solution to this issue. You have to put your political differences or whatever confrontations you have within Pakistan, put them behind and deal with TTP and Afghan Taliban. That's foremost for the national security.
Right. Dr. Naazir Mahmood, your take regarding this. What are the options when it comes to building a united front and relaying a strong message to the Afghan Taliban?
The only option is the parliament. Parliament is supreme, not the President of Pakistan. President of Pakistan is a ceremonial post. He should not be acting as a political leader. He has no business negotiating with different political parties and trying to reach whatever conclusion he wants.
But if a certain political party is not sitting in the parliament, so then what happens?
That is the point. That is the point. That the problem is stemming from not attending the parliament. That is, trying to sabotage democracy itself, trying to sabotage parliament itself, and trying to use a ceremonial post of the president to negotiate, to arrange a negotiation between the. He has no business doing this. All parties who have won elections in the previous election should go back to parliament, sit there, talk there, and try to respect democratic principles. And democratic principle is that the parliament is supreme. Right. Parliament should set up, as Brigadier Saab suggested, that unified opinion or unified policy that should stem from the parliament, from nowhere else.
Right, your point is well taken. Dr. Naazir Mahmood, senior journalist, thank you very much for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. And Brigadier Retired Mohammed Zeeshan, DG, Center for Peace, Security and Developmental Studies, thank you very much for your time. Also for being on Views on News. With this, we come to the end of today's Views on News. Until the next one, take good care of yourselves.